me how I was. Like, I want to know, please. I just need to know.
Gosh, you were so obnoxious.
You did? Ooh. Tell me, like, what was I saying to you, Kelly?
I don't know. You were just asking me and the girls a whole bunch of questions. Why y'all do this? Why y'all do that? Ooh, y'all something. It was a whole bunch of questions.
Oh my God.
And remember, we just gotten back from Jamaica. I was like the color of, but just really, really chocolate. And I remember you were like, ooh, girl, you are dark.
No.
Everybody's worried about why Beyoncé don't speak to Brandy and why they don't fool with each other. Well, what you need to be worrying about is why Kelly Rowland don't fuck with Brandy either. And she's on her tour. Catch that. Y'all so busy worried about, oh, Beyoncé came twice to see the show, but she only saw Monica, she only saw Kelly, and then she left. But have you seen pictures of Kelly and Beyoncé? I mean, Kelly and Brandy? I'm sorry, it's early. Huh? Have you seen pictures with Kelly and Brandy? Nope. I haven't. Have you? Here's the thing. I'm going to give you a brief history lesson because I see so many content creators and y'all get it wrong. And we are living in they say the information age and the technology age. And for that to be true, most of the people among us on these platforms are dumb. I just feel like we live in, this is like some sort of really, really weird time in man, that the level of stupidity and ignorance is at an all-time high. And you have all of this information in the palm of your hands. Let me break it down. I've seen think pieces about it, and people claim to care about, what they do and reporting the news. Y'all don't even read. Y'all don't even do research. One thing I've respected about Wendy Williams is that she was a pop culture expert. She was a pop culture phenom. She was a pop culture junkie. So when she said something, 9 times out of 10, when you researched it, she was telling the truth. She knew what she was talking about. Let me go back, because a lot of y'all are starting with 2010 and 29. No. There is and I didn't want to stitch it to this, and maybe I will. Maybe I will. After I do the commentary, maybe I will stitch it in the beginning of the video or the end of the video. Maybe, I don't know. Back in 98, when was it? August 98, maybe? July or August 98. Destiny's Child performed for the first time on an award show. I believe it was their first award show. And that was the Lady of Soul Awards. Y'all remember? Mariah Carey, I believe, got some sort of special award. And Shaka Khan I believe Shaka Khan got some sort of Lifetime Achievement Award that night. This was, I want to say it was definitely, it might have been July or August 1998. Okay? And I believe that was also the same award show that Karen Clark Sheard won her first secular award as a solo artist. Brandy was hosting or co-hosting the show. I believe she might have been hosting the show. Right? She might have been hosting the show. And apparently, allegedly, that was also Destiny's Child's, like I said, that was their first award as well. Apparently, that was also their first time meeting Brandy. And from what Kelly has said, obviously you can see it because I think I'm going to stitch it to the beginning of the video or the end. As you can see, Kelly said when she first met Brandy, she thought she was obnoxious. And yes, I'm sure that was true. Now, I love Brandy. I met her once. I liked Monica a little bit more because, she was a lot cooler in person. Brandy was nice. Let me just say, they both were cool. Everybody, I don't think I've met anyone that wasn't cool. All right, that's whatever. Kelly said that when the girls met Brandy was not necessarily nice to them. She was shady to them. And she was demeaning them. Like, why do y'all do this? Why y'all talk like that? Ooh, girl, you too dark. Ooh, girl, you this. Like, yes, that's exactly what she was giving. And people forget that Brandy wasn't necessarily kind to her fellow divas, up-and-coming young divas. She respected the older girls like Whitney and Mariah and SWV. She gave them props, okay? But the girls that were in her age group that I guess was her competition, she was very shady to. Aaliyah, she has said things about Aaliyah. She has said things about Monica, allegedly. She has said things about a lot of people. So when she met Destiny's Child, when they were just little girls, they were still teenage little girls. Brandy clearly was not nice to them. And some people don't forget that. There are people don't realize that when you meet somebody for the first time and it's not a good meeting, that stays with you. First impressions are lasting. And there are people that to this day that I've met 20, 25, 30 years ago that I didn't like. I didn't like their energy. They may have said or did something that I didn't like. And I still to this day don't fuck with them. I don't care how smart you are, how talented you are, how you may have evolved. Which is why I tell people all the time, always, even if you're not in a good mood, stay home. But when you meet people for the first time, try to make sure you put your best face forward. You try to show them really kindness and class and charm. Even if you don't feel like it, just remember that people are going to remember how they first met you. And so you always want to make a good impression, right? Through the years, I can see that Brandy has changed a little bit and grown up a little bit. But the rumor on the street is that when her and Kelly Rowland started to kind of befriend each other, maybe 10 years after their initial meeting, and because they share the same birthday, even though Kelly is a few years younger than Brandy. I think Kelly might be 4 or 5 years younger than Brandy. Their birthday is February 11th. And they became cool in the late to early 2000s, like 2008-ish, I believe. And word on the street was, allegedly, Brandy was trying to put a wedge in between her relationship with Beyoncé. By all of the colorist things. How do I put this without offending people? There are so many people, considering how everyone loves to attack trans women and take away their humanity. Everyone in those, even still to this day, are still a lot of dark-skinned women, or they want to hold on to that trauma that they've had growing up being dark-skinned and all the colorism and all that stuff. And it was said that was one of the reasons why things that Brandy would say is that, we dark girls need to stick together, allegedly. Allegedly. It's just so funny to me how everyone can hold on to their trauma and their marginalization, but they love to marginalize everyone else and oppress everyone else. But that's another thing. And I'm not talking about these ladies, okay? So allegedly, the beef was how Brandy allegedly was trying to kind of pull Kelly away from Beyonce was the whole, we dark-skinned girls need to stick together, considering that you was in a group with a light-skinned superstar, and I'm sure they put all this attention on her because she's light-skinned and pretty. We got, the talk. Y'all know how it goes. And Kelly did not like that, allegedly. Now, I'm saying allegedly because this is what the streets are saying, but a lot of what I'm saying is true that I know personally, okay, about certain things, especially the part that I'm about to get into. So that was the main reason, one of the reasons I was told, and that was one of the main reasons that, I guess, word on the street, I believe Wendy Williams might have even mentioned it about 15 years ago. That's the reason why Brandy and Kelly weren't as tight and they kind of had a falling out. Because one thing about Kelly is she don't play about Beyonce. Beyonce literally was their sisters. And not for nothing, everyone wants to hate Beyonce. And Beyonce is actually one of the nicest people that you could meet. She's one of the sweetest, most genuine, nicest people that you can meet. She's very confident. She don't fear no bitch. But she's a genuinely nice person. And Kelly don't play about her. A lot of people don't play about Beyonce because they've met her. They've spent time with her. They know what kind of person she is. She's a good person. And so Brandy and Brandy and Kelly don't really fool with each other either. And I'm going to take it a step deeper. And this is just my commentary, and I think those of us that grew up in that era will pretty much high five each other, and we can kind of agree that yes, we were part of that era. We've seen this firsthand. In the history of of music, really, in the history of music, everything goes in waves, right? And everything, especially when it comes to female artists, black female artists. And for a couple of years, the popular singer becomes the standard. She becomes the prototype, visually and musically. Going back almost 100 years ago, 90 years ago, Billie Holiday was the standard in terms of the way she phrased, the way she sang. She had a whole slew of people that sounded like her, like, Carmen McRae, yada, yada, yada. She was the leader of that era of singers. Yes, you had Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan, all these amazing, great, iconic singers in their own right. But Billie pretty much was the mother of that generation. Even Lena Horne said it. She said, we all looked up to her. I've heard Ella and Sarah say that. So after her, then you had, fast forward to, another era. You might have had Dionne Warwick first, and then the Supremes, and all of the ladies that came out in the 60s that were well gowned and coiffed. The hair was coiffed to a T. The makeup was perfect. They were poised. They had posture and sophistication, right? That became the standard. Okay, then you had 5 years after that, Aretha Franklin people don't realize how successful, how massively influential and successful Aretha was. Not only with Black America, but with white America. All of those classic 60s songs that Aretha did at the end of the 60s on Atlantic Records were #1 R&B records, but they were also top 5, top 10 pop records. Which meant that's why she has sold as many records as she sold. She was the standard. Aretha had Diana Ross and Dionne Warwick and all the girls by 1970 cutting off their hair and having like a fro and, or a short haircut and more of an earthy, natural look. Aretha was the standard, vocally and musically. Early 70s, you would be hard pressed to find any singer that wasn't trying to sing or sound or have the feeling that Aretha had. Hell, even Lena Horne said that after hearing Aretha Franklin, she opened me up. Lena said she wanted to sing like Aretha. Okay, Aretha was the standard from 67 to maybe 74. Then you had Chaka. Chaka Khan, another one that people really she's underrated in terms of the collective consciousness. Everyone loves her now and reveres her now, and they always have. But for what she has done, she changed the game musically and visually. There was so many, like even Anita Baker said it, so many girls were ripping their vocal cords to shreds trying to sound like Chaka. Okay? And look like her. The halter tops, the hair, the big hair, the jeans, the fancy European, the fancy Afrocentric bohemian look. Okay, the chinky eyes, the eye makeup, the white eye makeup, the green eye makeup, and like she was the standard. And Chaka was pretty much the standard from 74 to 84. And then you had Whitney in 85. She became the standard. And Anita Baker became the standard. So, going into the 90s, you had Mary J. Blige really for a whole, few years was the standard. Record companies wanted girls that were like from the hood, that were like ghetto fabulous, that were like, hip hop soul and a little bangy, tomboy-esque, And then you had Aaliyah, who, for the most part, was like literally a combination of a junior Mary J. Blige, but she had a certain demure, certain shyness about her. And then Brandy. Brandy literally for a good 5 years was the standard. She was the girl next door. She was the goody two-shoes. She was, the virtuous, virgin-esque type that every parent wanted their daughters to be. And for a long time, it worked. Brandy was one of the biggest celebrities from 95 to like 2000, 2001. She was not only a huge music star who crossed genres and crossed charts. She was on the pop charts as much as she was on the R&B charts. But she was also a TV star, an actress, a movie star. She had one of the top TV shows of the 90s. Okay? And then you have the new crop of girls that came up after Brandy. Beyonce and Destiny's Child, Maya, Little Mo, Ashanti, Rihanna, literally changing the game. Keisha Cole. Especially let's just focus on Destiny's Child. They took it to a whole other level because while they were young little girls, because they were all teenagers when they started, there was a certain sex appeal that they had. There was a certain provocativeness that they had without being slutty. They were not slutty. They were still ladies, but they were beautiful young ladies that were dressed appropriately, but leaned into their sex appeal for that age group. And they changed the game. Led by Beyonce, she became the standard. And she became the standard to a point where she set the bar so high that I would imagine Brandy felt some kind of way. Remember Brandy had a baby in early 2000s, and she tried to come back, with this sexy image with aphrodisiac, and literally you can see her trying to look like Beyonce in some of the videos and promotional pictures and performances and everything. She was trying to give you Beyonce because that had become the standard. And I believe for a lot of women, They resented having to be quote unquote sexy and perform a certain way, and now you have to train with a choreographer and a trainer, and and you had to fit this aesthetic and this mold of a performance that pretty much Beyonce was the leader of. Now, was it original? No. Beyonce was doing what Tina Turner and Shaka and Janet Jackson was doing decades before her. But she branded her own in her own style, her own swag, and everybody wanted that. All the labels wanted that. They wanted the girls to go in and do the Beyonce phrasing and the staccato singing and the look, the imaging had to be her. The movements on the stage had to be Beyonce-esque. And I'm sure Brandy felt some kind of way. Because I remember India Arie trying to get... You have India Arie, who was very close friends with Brandy. At the 2003 BET Awards, when they were doing the pre-show interviews, and it was her, Mary J. Blige, being interviewed by, I forgot who was doing the interview, and they had brought up Beyonce, because Beyonce she was the star of the night. She was the star. She was the belle of the industry. And she had the most nominations, I believe. And I think she had just won a whole bunch of Grammys and broke a record. And they asked India Arie, and India Arie, how do I put this? Was really trying to throw shade, and she was trying to pull Mary into her shade, and Mary was not going for it. She was like, no, Beyonce is very talented in her own right. She's a beautiful girl who works very hard. And she left it, and that's how she handled that. I know that there were a lot of females that resented it. They weren't angry with the patriarchy or the male chauvinistic industry that led and ruled what was hot and what was not. They weren't angry with that. They were angry with Beyonce. And I just was like, that's so unfair. Beyonce actually had nothing to do with that. She was y'all just can't compete. And which says to me, you need to find your own lane. One of the things that I've always appreciated about singers from decades past is that you could have a Diana Ross and Dionne Warwick and a Gladys Knight and the Pips and a LaBelle and Aretha Franklin and a Roberta Flack and the Shirelles and the Martha and the Vandellas and Martha Reeves. Like, you can have all of these women in the 60s be famous, popular, and successful. Okay, yes, they for the most part fell under a certain aesthetic and prototype, but within that, they carved out their own niche, their own shit. Brandy, I believe, resents Beyonce. And I'm sure whatever happened between Brandy and Kelly got back to Beyonce. So she has every right to not fool with her. And Ray J, please shut the fuck up, because I did a video. Ooh, well, I can't put the video up now, so because y'all already opened my big mouth, because I wasn't going to say who I was talking about, but I already did a video about you, Ray J, that I'm not going to put up. Okay? Shut up, please. Your demonic ass. Okay? Beyonce and Jay-Z don't have to speak to a damn person. How dare you? Tell people who they need to come and see. That they have to take a trip specifically to speak to you and your sister so y'all can take pictures with them. Come on now. Everybody pretty much got it wrong. Like, I hear all these think pieces and stuff like that. And yes, I'm sorry for the long video. I have to stop giving so much context. I'm someone that has studied and I kind of retrieve and store a lot of information in my brain, and I always want to give you the most vivid, clear, complete picture. So I'm sorry for all the context, but no, it's deeper than what people are saying. Bottom line, I think on Beyonce's side and Kelly, especially Beyonce's side, maybe she never got over how Brandy allegedly treated her when they first met her at the Lady of Soul Awards in 1998. Okay, and then on Brandy's side, maybe she's feeling some kind of way about Beyonce's because she resents having to maybe she feels some kind of way about having to lean into her sexy. Maybe she doesn't feel sexy. Maybe she doesn't feel beautiful, which would probably explain why she was so shady to Monica and Aaliyah and Destiny's Child and everyone else that had said that she wasn't nice to them. You know, maybe she resented coming back into the industry and now the new standard is Beyonce and now this is what you have to do in order to become famous or have a successful album. You know, so yes, I want people, when you're doing commentary, to really do your research. There's a lot of information out here. Like, I'm going to do something about, maybe I'll review the Diddy thing, because a lot of y'all are getting it wrong, too. Like, Suge Knight was allegedly responsible for Biggie. Y'all are out here talking about, I don't understand how with all this information, y'all still are fucking getting the information wrong. Y'all still are not understanding what's really going on. Like, I mean, well, look at what happened in the last election. Okay, y'all had the answers to the test and you all failed because you voted for the wrong motherfucker. And look at how you're suffering now. But that's another story. I just don't understand how fucking dumb most people are. I'm just like, I can't believe we are living amongst all these fools. Okay? All you have to do, if you so interested in the Biggie Tupac thing and the Puffy thing, watch documentaries. They're all over YouTube. Educate yourself before you speak. Okay? I don't know nothing about Tupac and Keefy D. I mean, I've heard things and Diddy, but I know in terms of Biggie, okay, Diddy had nothing to do with that. And if you would have watched any of the motherfucking documentaries and movies, you would have known he had nothing to do with it. Y'all are dumb. Let me go.